Part 39. At the beginning, I gave the future empress her death. I became stronger because I was stupid. Author, Len Mian Bulletin Leng. Chapter 381. Too late. A girl in black robe said indifferently, her tone was soft, and there was no hint of joy or sorrow, but there was a hint of chill in her cold eyes. Hearing this was like a thunderbolt from the blue, instantly making them stunned on the spot. The black-robed girl waved her jade finger in the air, and an invisible energy turned into an arc and burst out, piercing the chest of an elder of the Tianjian sect like lightning and taking away his life. Bang bang bang. The next second, 3 corpses fell to the ground, dead in an instant. No one was spared. The terrifying smell of blood spread in the hall, and the space was filled with a strong smell of blood. Plop! Plop! 2 more corpses fell, blood splattered in the hall. All the monks in the hall were so frightened that they fell to the ground with despair. No! Don't kill me! Spare your life! We were wrong, we never dare to do it again. Don't kill me, fairy, please spare our lives. When the leader of the Heavenly Sword Saint sect and others saw this scene, they were so frightened that their whole bodies were trembling. They were so horrified that their hearts almost jumped out of their chests. I already said, it's too late, the girl in black robe said indifferently, her tone as calm as ever. Then her eyes slowly scanned everyone present, and finally rested on the woman in purple. But you don't have to die. After finishing speaking, she moved her steps slightly and approached the woman in purple. When the purple-robed woman heard this, her pretty face suddenly changed, and a hint of panic appeared in her eyes. She quickly stepped back and stared at the black-robed girl warily. What are you going to do? I'm telling you, don't come over here. If you dare to hurt me, our ancestor will never let you go. Pa! The girl in black robe raised her snow-white hand and slapped the woman in purple directly on the cheek. The loud and clear slap spread in all directions. There was a sneer on her lips. That's a lot of nonsense. The next moment, the girl in black robe grabbed her shoulders and pulled off the veil covering her face. An extremely beautiful face that captivated the whole country and intoxicated the world appeared in the eyes of the girl in black robe. The girl in black robe nodded. You're not bad. If you offer you to the master, you might be able to please him. The girl in black robe muttered to herself, completely ignoring the woman in purple, as if she was discussing what kind of food to eat tonight. You. Hearing these words, the woman in purple was so ashamed and angry that she almost exploded. She clenched her fists tightly, her delicate body was trembling, her pretty face was full of humiliation, and her beautiful pupils were filled with overwhelming hatred, and she wanted to cut the black-robed girl into pieces with 1,000 knives. However, she did not dare to mess around for fear of offending this terrifyingly powerful woman. Cooperate well, this is your destiny. The girl in black robe turned to look at her and reminded. The woman in the purple dress clenched her silver teeth, her pretty face was ashen, and her beautiful eyes were full of hatred and humiliation. She was a majestic fairy, but she became a prisoner of others. What's more, she might become a man's plaything, which is shameful just thinking about it. The girl in black robe ignored her and continued to look at the other women present. At this time, everyone present was already kneeling on the ground, shivering, frightened, and extremely frightened. They were completely desperate and allowed themselves to be slaughtered without daring to make any rash move. Then, the black-robed saint stretched out her white and slender right arm, pointing her jade fingers at the remaining 20 women. And you, are you willing to surrender? The girl in black robe said coldly, with no pity or sympathy in her beautiful eyes. I do. I am willing to surrender. As long as I can survive, I can do anything. For a moment, all the women kowtowed in unison, not daring to neglect and rushing to speak first. Seeing this, the girl in black robe nodded with satisfaction, and then ordered the women. Since you are willing to surrender, From now on you are the master's slaves and must abide by the rules set by the master. Those who betray their masters will die. At the end of the sentence, the cold and piercing eyes of the black-robed girl suddenly shot out a ray of murderous intent, like a poisonous snake spitting out a message, which made people feel horrified. As you command. Hearing this, more than 20 women responded hurriedly. Very good. The black-robed girl nodded slightly, then retracted her hand, and her eyes fell on the leader of the Tianjian sect and others again. In an instant, the terrifying coercion enveloped the entire hall, making everyone tremble with fear and strong fear in their hearts. Ah, don't, let us go. Fairy, have mercy on me, Fairy, have mercy on me. We realize our mistake. We are willing to surrender. The leader of the Tianjian sect and other monks knelt on the ground, kowtowed and begged for mercy, shouting in horror, their faces twisted and hideous. The girl in black robe sneered, her eyes fell on the master of Tianjian sect, and she said coldly, since you are willing to surrender to the master, then make an oath to heaven and earth. After hearing these words, the faces of the Tianjian sect leader and others suddenly froze, their hearts fell to the bottom, despair reached the extreme, and they secretly said, it's over. The oath of heaven and earth is the most stringent contract technique in the world of cultivation. The consequences of violating the oath of heaven and earth are very miserable, ranging from damage to the soul to death from body explosion. But now that it's over, they have no choice. No matter what, only by preserving the foundation of the sect can we have a chance to make a comeback. The leader of the Heavenly Sword sect took a deep breath, suppressed his inner grief and humiliation, and immediately prepared to make a heaven-earth oath. At this moment, dozens of wind-breaking sounds suddenly sounded. Then, a series of vast and majestic terrifying waves swept over, and dozens of figures appeared in the hall, with a fierce momentum. The leader was an old man with white hair and a youthful face, surrounded by dazzling golden light, and exuding an extremely sharp aura. The leader of the Heavenly Sword Saint sect was stunned, and then he shouted with ecstasy, Grand Elder, you are finally here. Save me. Seeing this, the other cultivators also seemed to have found a backer, and they shouted loudly, extremely happy and excited. It's the ancestor. Ha ha, we're saved. Ha ha, the ancestor is here, that bitch is dead. We're safe. Ha ha. The great elders finally came to save us, who dares to bully us now? Girl, you can't escape. Ha ha ha. Everyone present breathed a sigh of relief, their faces were filled with joy of surviving a disaster, and they were extremely excited. These people who came were the saints and ancestors they had not been able to contact for a long time. Originally, they were disappointed, thinking that they could not escape the bad luck today, but now, they saw hope again. However, soon, they were dumbfounded, their faces gradually solidified, they were dumbfounded, their eyes almost popped out, and they couldn't believe the scene in front of them. These saints and ancestors came to the black-skirted woman, prostrate themselves on the ground, kowtowed respectfully, and shouted in unison, meet the mistress. Everyone. At the beginning, I gave the future empress her death. I became stronger because I was stupid. Author, Len Mi and Buletin Leng. Chapter 382. Mistress. The cultivators in the apocalypse domain gasped, their eyes bulged out, and they were extremely shocked. How is this possible? What's going on? Mistress? Are you referring to the woman in the black dress? What is the identity of this woman in the black dress that the saint ancestor actually called her the mistress? Everyone present was instantly shocked and horrified. They couldn't believe what they saw. They opened their mouths wide in shock, thinking they had heard it wrong. But they watched the saint ancestors kneel in front of the woman in the black dress, kowtow respectfully, and call her the mistress. Is this still their ancestor? At this moment, countless questions flashed through their minds. They never thought that the saint ancestors, who were so high and mighty in the legend, would actually be so humble and respectful to a strange woman. You know, their ancestors are powerful saints, and their strength is extremely strong, especially when so many saint ancestors gather together, their strength is enough to sweep the world. But at this moment, their saint ancestors call the black-robed girl the mistress. This completely subverted their three views. Especially the leader of the Tianjian sect and others, they were so scared that their livers and gallbladders were broken, and their souls were scared. Because they just insulted the black-robed girl. And the words were very unpleasant, even insulting and contemptuous. But now, the saint ancestors all respectfully called her mistress. Doesn't that mean they are completely finished? Thinking of this, their faces turned pale as paper, and cold sweat fell. I just felt cold all over, as if falling into an ice cave. No. No. It's not true. Ancestor, how could you recognize a black-robed child as your mistress? The leader of the Tianjian sect roared madly, unable to accept what was happening in front of him. Shut up, if you dare to talk nonsense again, I will kill you, the saint of Tianjian sect snorted coldly, his tone was cold, full of anger and murderous intent. After being scolded by the saint of Tianjian sect, the leader of Tianjian sect trembled all over and dared not say anything again. Although he was the leader of a sect, he held power, called the wind and rain, and controlled the lives of hundreds of millions of people. He was a man above others. But compared with the ancestor of Tianjian sect, the gap was too big, like the difference between an ant and a dragon. He was desperate, and the whole person collapsed to the ground, staring at the sky with a dull look, his fists clenched, his nails pierced his skin, and blood flowed from his fingertips and dripped on the ground. The rest of the people were not much better. One by one, they looked ashen, and sat on the ground like a lost soul, motionless. Their eyes were dead silent, as if they had lost their souls and had no desire to live. Because in their opinion, they were doomed to die today. The saint of Tianjian sect ignored the leader of Tianjian section. He stared deeply at the black-dressed girl in front of him, and a trace of solemnity flashed in his eyes. Then, he knelt down on his knees. Old slave greets the mistress. They are ignorant and offended the mistress. Please punish them lightly. After the Tianjian sect ancestor finished speaking, he kowtowed to the black-dressed girl, and his attitude was extremely humble and respectful. Ancestor. Seeing this scene, the leader of Tianjian sect suddenly raised his head, showing a face full of astonishment. The ancestor could plead for him, which meant that the ancestor still cared about him and was willing to give up his dignity to plead for him. Thinking of this, the leader of Tianjian sect was grateful and tears filled his eyes. He finally breathed a sigh of relief, and a little hope surged in his originally dead heart. However, while the hope surged, infinite fear surged in his heart. This shows that the saint ancestor is very afraid of this black-dressed girl, and he is so afraid that he doesn't even care about his dignity. Otherwise, the saint ancestor would never be willing to surrender. Who is the other party? What did the ancestors experience in the Qin dynasty? Thinking of this, the leader of the Tianjian sect felt cold all over, as if he fell into the underworld. Oh? So you know me? The black-dressed girl smiled and glanced at the Tianjian sect ancestor indifferently, with a playful tone. Her voice was crisp and beautiful, like a silver bell, but it was like a bolt from the blue to the ears of the Tianjian sect ancestor, making him tremble all over. Of course he didn't know her. But before he came, he had heard Qin Mu say that there were 9 female saints in the Tiankai domain, who were the guardians of the Qin dynasty. And the 9 strange female saints in front of him were obviously the 9 guardians. In this case, according to Qin Mu's temperament, these 9 female saints must be his harem. So it is natural and reasonable to call her mistress. The Tianjian sect's ancestor thought quickly and immediately changed his strategy, flattering and smiling. I dare not hide it from you, mistress. Although I have never seen you, I have admired your reputation for a long time, but I have never been able to see you. Today I finally see you, which is really lucky. Please forgive me and allow us to apologize to you." As soon as he finished speaking, he waved his hand. The void shook, the sky shook, and the spiritual energy of heaven and earth took shape and gathered into a huge pyramid. Rumble. As the pyramid took shape, the sky trembled violently, and the sky was dark, as if the end of the world had arrived. This is the pyramid projection, an ancient secret technique that contains the great power of the saint ancestor. It can communicate the power of heaven and earth and form a world of its own. The black-skirted girl was slightly surprised and scanned the pyramid projection with interest. The pyramid is hexagonal, with 9 floors, emitting a strong holy rhyme fluctuation, like a towering mountain standing on the top of the sky. There are many crystal light balls interweaving and floating inside, revealing a vast and unpredictable mysterious atmosphere, which seems to be able to suppress the heavens and the worlds. "Madam, this is all the hidden wealth of the Tianjian sect, please accept it," the ancestor of the Tianjian sect said sincerely. Immediately, with a big wave of his hand, the huge pyramid projection instantly burst into dazzling light, covering thousands of feet in radius. OM. Accompanied by the flashing light, gems are suspended in the air, shining and dazzling. Hearing this, everyone took a breath of cold air. The Tianjian sect actually took out all the property. You are worthy of being the ancestor of the Tianjian sect saint, you are really rich and powerful, the black-clothed girl said lightly, with admiration in her eyes. But why did you give it to me? This. Hearing this, the Tianjian sect saint was stunned. He originally thought that the other party should like treasures, but he actually asked him back. Ahem. The ancestor of the Tianjian sect coughed twice and smiled awkwardly, reporting to the mistress, "The Tianjian sect has been wiped out, and the treasures left behind must naturally be dedicated to the mistress." He said this entirely to save the lives of the Tianjian sect's leader and others. The treasures will be gone if they are bought, and if all the people are gone, then the Tianjian sect will be really wiped out. Although the ancestor of the Tianjian sect has surrendered to Qin Mu and become the Saint Thug of Dakan, he still has his own thoughts and naturally does not want the Tianjian sect to be really wiped out. Therefore, he would rather use all his family property in exchange for the lives of the Tianjian sect's leader and others. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. At the beginning, I gave the future empress her death. I became stronger because I was stupid. Author, Leng Mian Buletin Leng. Chapter 383. After hearing his explanation, the girl in black looked indifferently and said coldly, "Everything here belongs to the owner. When will it be your turn to make a decision?" "Master, master." The ancestor of Tianjian sect was stunned and couldn't react for a moment, looking at the girl in black skirt in disbelief. "Is she also called Master Qin Mu? Okay, it seems I guessed wrong. They are more than just Qin Mu's harem." Thinking of this, the ancestor of Tianjian sect suddenly realized, sweating on his forehead, and panicked. Just when he was about to say something, he heard the girl in black skirt say calmly, "Since you ancestors are here, it's up to you to clean up the house yourself." After saying that, he walked out. "Master, mother, don't get me wrong, we didn't mean that." Seeing this, the ancestor of Tianjian sect was frightened and hurriedly defended himself, trying to save the situation. Unfortunately, before he could finish speaking, the girl in black skirt and 8 other female saints had disappeared here. Seeing this, the ancestor of Tianjian sect suddenly sighed bitterly. It seems that Tianjian sect really cannot escape. He turned around silently and looked at his disciples and grandsons. His figure suddenly aged countless times, as if he had aged 300 to 400 years in an instant. You evildoer, why don't you just kneel down and die? The next moment, the ancestor of the Tianjian sect suddenly burst into laughter, and the sound shook the sky and resounded through the sky. At the same time, countless sword shadows appeared around him, and the sword energy roared and killed. Plop! Hearing the ancestors roar, the leader of the Tianjian sect and others could no longer bear the oppression. They bent their knees and knelt on the ground trembling. No, no, ancestor, spare your life. The leader of Tianjian sect begged for mercy with a mournful face, while the other monks also howled and cried bitterly. You bastards, you still want to make excuses? You colluded with the demons to kill my human monks, which is a heinous crime. From today on, you will be abolished as the sect leader and you will be expelled from the school. As for you, death penalty. The ancestor of Tianjian sect's eyes were cold, and he struck out with a palm, and billowing blood mist splashed out, and several senior officials of Tianjian sect were brutally murdered. When the leader of the Tianjian sect heard this sentence, his muddy old eyes suddenly widened, filled with regret and anger, and finally turned into a wisp of resentment. When did he collude with the demons? Ancestor, I. The leader of Tianjian sect started to speak, but stopped abruptly and could only scream in despair. Bang! The next second, the body of the leader of Tianjian sect exploded, his soul was crushed, and his body and soul were completely destroyed. The same was true for the other powerful men of the Heavenly Sword section. They didn't even have a chance to scream, and were directly killed by the ancestor of the Heavenly Sword sect. At this point, the Tianjian sect was completely destroyed, with only a few saint ancestors left. Other saints also took action to kill their disciples or elders. Soon, the entire Tianjian sect became quiet, and there was no more noise. Everywhere you looked, blood flowed into rivers, and corpses piled up into mountains, which was shocking. The ancestor of Tianjian sect stood in the devastated square, looking up at the gray sky. After a long time, he sighed slowly, feeling very complicated. Although he had expected it, the fact before him still made him feel deeply sad. The Tianjian sect was ultimately destroyed in his hands. Well. In the end, the ancestor of the Tianjian sect shook his head and sighed, raised his hand to flick his sleeves, and buried the bodies of the leader of the Tianjian sect and others. After doing all this, the ancestor of Tianjian sect turned around and left, his body stooped and old. The other saint ancestors also followed, with strong sadness on their faces. After solving the Tianjian sect, it's time to solve their sect next. The entire apocalypse domain cannot escape. The sky was bright, and the sun shone in through the windows, coating the house with a warm and soft golden color. Xuanhuan opened her eyes, and what came into her eyes was the top of the white gauze curtain, and she was lying on a luxurious and comfortable dragon bed, with layers of curtains, luxurious and gorgeous. Hiss. Xuanhuan took a breath of pain, her whole body sore, as if she had been run over by a car. She blinked her eyes, feeling dizzy, and her thoughts gradually returned to normal. 3 days. 3 whole days. Xuanhuan felt as if her white tiger body was falling apart, and it was extremely difficult to move a finger. Is he really human? As soon as this thought flashed through her mind, Xuanhuan felt a sharp pain in her lower abdomen. She groaned, her brows filled with pain, and couldn't help but curl up. Although I had expected this day to come, when it actually happened, it still gave Xuanhuan a huge impact. What Xuanhuan never expected the most was that her majestic body of a white tiger could actually be defeated. Xuanhuan closed her eyes, but what flashed through her mind was the scene from last night. Every look and expression of Qinmu was clearly visible, making her memory fresh. Thinking of last night's scene, Xuanhuan still felt her cheeks burning, and a strong sense of humiliation emerged in her heart. This is simply a great shame and humiliation for the aloof White Tiger clan. If she hadn't lost her strength, she would never have been defeated. Etc. Strength. Xuanhuan suddenly opened her eyes and sat up suddenly. She suddenly thought that a magical power seemed to be injected into her body yesterday, but she fainted before she could feel it carefully. Thinking of this, Xuanhuan immediately gathered all her spiritual power and tried to mobilize the power in her body. Soon, fine beads of sweat broke out on Xuanhuan's forehead. She did not succeed. But Xuanhuan was not disappointed, and instead showed a shocked look on her face. Although she still had no strength in her body, she clearly felt that her bottleneck was loosening. This feeling is very familiar. She had felt this way when she was about to break through and become a saint. The development of all this completely exceeded Xuanhuan's imagination and made her extremely excited. What is going on? Could it be Qin Mu's contribution? Xuanhuan's mind couldn't help but think of what Qin Mu said last night. I believe you will like this method of cooperation. It turns out that this is true. But Xuanhuan was even more confused. What method did Qin Mu use to achieve this effect? While she was thinking, Your Majesty, I beg you to let the young lady go. The young lady really can't take any more trouble. A weak voice came from outside the door, vaguely mixed with a hint of pleading. At the beginning, I gave the future empress her death. I became stronger because I was stupid. Author, Len Mian Buletin Leng. Chapter 384. Xuanhuan's eyes flashed slightly. The voice was obviously none other than her maid Xiao Zhao. Thinking of Xiao Zhao, Xuanhuan couldn't help but think of that night. It seemed that at the end, she couldn't hold on any longer, so she asked Xiao Zhao to take over for a while. Xuanhuan rubbed her forehead. She vaguely remembered that there should be such a thing. As she thought about it, Xuanhuan blushed again and her heart beat fast. She wished she could find a hole to crawl into immediately. What a shame, no, it's such a shame. She, a member of the majestic White Tiger clan, would actually lose to a mere human? What a shame. Xuanhuan clenched her fists and secretly warned herself that she must practice hard and regain this dignity in the future. Your Majesty, Miss, you really can't continue anymore, you'd better come at me. Xiao Zhao's urgent pleading voice sounded outside the door again, with a crying tone, and it could be heard that she was really anxious. Xuanhuan suddenly came back to her senses and her heart skipped a beat. No, how can this be done? Xiao Zhao, don't be impulsive. It's better to do it to me, miss. Xuanhuan shook her head, suppressing the shame in her heart. She decided that she would regain her dignity now and even the game. Of course, it has nothing to do with her loosening of realm, she just doesn't want to be weaker than Qin Mu. So this time, she will never allow Xiao Zhao to replace her. Let her bear all the humiliation herself. Xuanhuan tried to calm down, took a deep breath, and slowly walked off the bed. The pink jade feet gently stepped on the floor, as long and round as lotus roots, crystal clear and spotless. At this time, candles were lit in the room, and Xuanhuan used the light to see clearly the environment she was in now. The palace decoration is simple and elegant, with carved beams and painted pillars, and the walls are inlaid with crystal stones of various colors, making the whole room shine brightly. There is a strange-looking chair in the center of the hall, and various strange utensils are displayed on the shelves next to it. It looks like some kind of magic weapon, but it doesn't look like it upon closer inspection. Xuanhuan looked at it for a few seconds, then walked towards the chair in front of her. The entire body of this chair is cast from a precious black ore, with half-moon shapes at both ends and complex and mysterious patterns engraved around it. Looking at the chair, Xuanhuan's snowy face with delicate makeup had a hint of crimson for no reason, and her ears were also red, as if they were about to bleed. Cough. Xuanhuan pretended to be calm and coughed twice. She quickly looked away and walked towards the palace entrance without stopping. When passing by the dressing table, Xuanhuan paused slightly and looked at the person in the mirror. The girl in the bronze mirror has skin as white as snow and as delicate as a porcelain doll. Her jet black hair was flowing down, with a strand of black silk tied into a bun, only wearing 2 exquisite flowers and a silver hairpin. The lavender skirt swept the floor, and her waist was full, outlining her graceful curves and making her skin breakable. Xuanhuan blinked her watery eyes and stared at herself in the mirror. A pair of big, dark, and bright eyes flickered, as if stars were flowing in them. Xuanhuan reached out and fiddled with the hanging hair on her temples, curled her lips slightly, and muttered in a low voice, "You really took advantage of that shameless fool." The more Xuanhuan thought about it, the more depressed she became. She was the princess of the White Tiger clan, and she was given to a human for such a cheap price. No, she has to regain her strength quickly. When her strength becomes higher, she will definitely beat that fool hard and let him taste the feeling of being suppressed. But, even though he was a faint king, he was quite handsome, at least better looking than any man she had ever seen. And he was also very powerful. For some reason, Xuanhuan always felt that Qin that night was not as cold and heartless as he seemed on the surface. He would even help her wipe away her sweat and soothe her delicate body that was shaking from pain. Xuanhuan's mind was filled with thoughts. At this time, she discovered a painting hanging on the wall of the hall not far away. Xuanhuan frowned slightly and looked at one of them. As soon as she finished reading, the corner of her mouth twitched slightly and her cheeks became even hotter. On the scroll is a young man wearing a dragon robe. He has a handsome appearance and a mighty aura. He shows the demeanor of an emperor in every gesture, and his brows exude the arrogance of looking down on all living beings. But that's not the key. The key is that there is a white-haired woman in every picture. She was sitting on the man's lap, her clothes were half taken off, revealing her white and smooth skin, her arms were clinging to the man's neck, her eyes were misty and flirtatious. There are also some women lying on the ground or lying on their backs in the arms of men. There were even more outrageous paintings, and Xuanhuan didn't even dare to take a second look at them. Because this woman is none other than herself. No wonder she felt that this woman's figure was a bit familiar, and it turned out to be her. In the painting, she is charming, and exudes a seductive aura. She is completely different from her usual style. Xuanhuan's heart was beating fast, the heat on her face was burning more and more, and her head felt dizzy, as if she was in a cloud. This bastard fool. Xuanhuan gritted her teeth and wished she could rush out and beat Qin up right now, but there was nothing she could do. Who makes it impossible for her to mobilize any power now? Xuanhuan forced herself to look away, but her face became even hotter. No, we must not let this kind of thing hang outside. Xuanhuan came under a painting scroll and wanted to take it off, but the scroll was hung too high for her to reach. Xuanhuan stood under the scroll, stood on tiptoes, stretched her hands upwards, and finally took down the scroll. But the next second, Xuanhuan was startled by the sudden appearance of a figure. Ah! Xuanhuan screamed in horror, took a few steps back, and almost fell to the ground. Qin was tall, wearing a dark gold robe, with dark hair shawl, and an indifferent cold light flashing in his narrow black eyes, staring at Xuanhuan like a hawk, which was creepy. But the next second, the ice in Qin eyes slowly melted, a gentle smile appeared on his lips, and he approached her step by step with his long and straight legs. So you like this painting too? There is a hint of hoarseness in the deep magnetic voice, which makes people feel numb when listening to it. Xuanhuan. You stupid king, do you want to listen to what you are saying? How could I possibly like this painting? You, what are you talking nonsense about? Who likes this painting? Xuanhuan's eyes widened with anger, and she quickly denied it. Oh? If you don't like this painting, why did you take it down, Qin Mu pursed his thin lips and stared at Xuanhuan quietly with his dark eyes as deep as a pool. Xuanhuan was stunned. At this time, Xiao Zhao suddenly jumped out from the side, stood between her and Qin Mu, and shouted, "Miss, hurry up and I'll take the responsibility for you." However, what Xiao Zhao didn't expect was that Xuanhuan not only did not leave, but also pulled her aside and said seriously, "Xiao Zhao, you go in and hide first, and then I'll go in and look for you after I deal with this scoundrel." Xiao Zhao was stunned for a moment. He opened his eyes wide and stared blankly at Xuanhuan, dumbfounded. "Little, miss, what are you doing?" "Shut up, hide away first, don't cause trouble," Xuanhuan said fiercely with a stern face. Her tone was domineering. Miss Xiao Zhao hesitated, his beautiful face wrinkled into a bun. "Don't worry, your lady, I'm very powerful. I promise to knock him down," Xuanhuan vowed. Qin Mu smiled and said calmly, "Stop fighting, no one can escape." Xuanhuan. At the beginning, I gave the future empress her death. I became stronger because I was stupid. Author, Len Mian Buletin Leng. Chapter 385. This shameless and incompetent emperor. He is still thinking about such a good thing? Xuanhuan gritted her teeth secretly, and couldn't help complaining in her heart, "Isn't it enough to have me? Tisk. What a tyrant." Xuanhuan spat lightly, and a trace of shame and contempt flashed across her blushing cheeks. "Well, I am indeed a tyrant," Qin Mu nodded, very frankly. Xuanhuan. You. Xuanhuan was so angry that her chest was stuffy, and she felt that her lungs were about to explode. How could there be such a shameless human being in this world? Most strong people have their own style and dignity. Even if they do something, they will pretend to be unfathomable. They will never admit that they have done something wrong, let alone admit that they are incompetent. But the emperor in front of him is good. Not only did he admit that he was a tyrant, but he also took it for granted and had no shame. It was simply shameless to the extreme. Xuanhuan was so angry that she couldn't help stamping her feet. Her snow-white and tender feet stepped lightly on the soft carpet, like a kitten acting coquettishly, which made people pity her. In her current posture, where is the cold and indifferent in the past? She is completely like a little girl. She is like a frightened little animal, cute and lovely, and also reveals a bit of charm. Xiao Zhao looked at the scene with an indescribable expression on her face. She wanted to protect her young lady, but looking at the young lady, it seems that she doesn't need her protection, and even seems to want to drive her away. What happened to the young lady? Is it because she has lost her power for too long that there is a problem with her brain? Or is it because the young lady fell in love with this tyrant? Xiao Zhao's eyes were shocked, and this thought suddenly flashed through her mind, and she was immediately shocked. She looked at Xuanhuan, whose face was slightly red and seemed to be angry, and then looked at Qin Mu, who had a handsome face and an imposing manner, and felt that her heart was beating like a drum. It's over. Could the young lady be deceived by the tyrant? Xiao Zhao bit her lips tightly, and her eyes gradually became moist. She knew that the young lady took the initiative to hug the tyrant that day because she liked him. Looking at the young lady's current appearance, she was flirting with the tyrant, completely living up to her previous cold and steady appearance. It was clear that she had fallen in love and couldn't get out of it. What was so good about this tyrant? He could make the young lady fall in love with him and even give up her freedom. Xiao Zhao looked melancholy and felt that her worries might become a reality. No, she must stop the tyrant from continuing to hurt her closest people. The young lady is a direct descendant of the White Tiger clan. How could she like a human tyrant? Absolutely not. Xiao Zhao secretly calculated in her heart how to save her young lady from straying and returning to the right path. What do you mean? I dare to admit it, but you, do you dare? Qin Mu raised his eyebrows, with a smile of interest in his eyes. Xuanhuan frowned slightly and said in confusion, "What do I admit?" Qin Mu smiled but said nothing. Then he raised his hand and pointed at the scroll hanging on the palace, saying playfully, "She acts like a noble and cold fairy outside, but in fact, she is just a sultry and lustful fairy." Xuanhuan followed Qin Mu's line of sight. Sure enough, the woman in the painting was wearing a gauze, a long skirt dragging on the ground, and her skin was whiter than snow. You could vaguely see the beautiful scenery inside. Especially her charming demeanor, her delicate and charming cherry lips raised a faint smile, and the light in her beautiful eyes was flowing, which made people's hearts ripple. They just wanted to pounce on her immediately and press her under their bodies and ravage her. Add to that the enchanting posture of the woman in the painting, it was completely a living temptation. Such a beautiful fairy, even if it was just a scroll, was like a blooming rose, blooming in the air, tempting people to pick it. The corners of Xuanhuan's mouth twitched twice, and she wanted to rush to the painting and tear it off immediately. "What nonsense are you talking about? Who is the sultry fairy?" Xuanhuan's eyes widened, her pretty little face flushed red, and her exquisite oval face was full of anger, looking like a cat whose tail was stepped on. "You." Xuanhuan was so angry that she stuttered when she spoke. She gritted her teeth and stared at the painting, cursing. "Shameless! How dare you slander me in such a despicable way?" Xuanhuan was furious, staring at Qin Mu with flaming eyes. Qin Mu smiled slightly, pulled his collar slowly, and said lightly, "Look at what's here." Xuanhuan's sight was fixed on Qin Mu's neck, and her pupils contracted violently. There were several red marks on Qin Mu's neck, like kiss marks. Scenes suddenly appeared in Xuanhuan's mind. Show me this for what? I don't know anything." Xuanhuan's face instantly turned red, and her voice stuttered. "Tisk tisk, so heartless, you don't recognize me just now." Qin Mu shook his head and sighed, "I really didn't expect that the princess of the White Tiger clan would be like this. I really feel sad for the White Tiger clan." "You bastard! You, don't insult the White Tiger clan!" Xuanhuan shouted angrily, her beautiful little face flushed red because of being too angry. "Am I wrong?" Qin Mu asked back, and then continued. "The White Tiger clan has always been low-key and restrained, but you dressed up like a fairy to seduce me. Don't you have an ulterior motive?" "Bah! Who seduced you?" Listening to what Qin Mu said became more and more outrageous. Xuanhuan was so angry that she almost vomited blood. Her apricot eyes were burning with blazing flames, and she wanted to burn Qin Mu to death. She gritted her teeth and said, "It's obvious that you have bad intentions and are trying to take advantage of me." Qin Mu shook his head, sighed, turned to look at Xiaozhao, and asked, "Xiaozhao, you were also involved in the second half. To be fair, who took advantage of whom at that time?" Xiaozhao was suddenly called and trembled all over. She looked at Xuanhuan, then looked back at Qin Mu. She bit her lip and mustered up the courage to say, "Yes, it's Miss." She decided to use this incident to make the young lady sober up, stay away from the foolish king, and return to her lost ways. At that time, it was the young lady who took the initiative. Xiao Zhao's words were like a loud slap on Xuanhuan's face. Hearing this, Xuanhuan's eyes suddenly opened wide and she looked at Xiao Zhao in astonishment. Warm reminder, if you find that clicking the next page will force you to jump to other websites, please use the chapter error or contact us at the bottom to inform us. We will handle it as soon as possible. Thank you for your understanding. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. At the beginning, I gave the future empress her death. I became stronger because I was stupid. Author, Len Mian Buletin Leng. Chapter 386. Xiao Zhao actually testified for Qin Mu. Are you saying that she took advantage of Qin Mu? What's wrong with Xiao Zhao? Is he being bewitched by this faint king? Xuanhuan couldn't believe what she heard. Even Qin Mu was slightly startled, obviously not expecting the little church to say this. Although what Xiao Zhao said is indeed true, aren't they masters and servants? Why does Xiao Zhao want to speak for himself? Qin Mu also didn't understand. At this time, Xiao Zhao used this excuse to continue criticizing. Miss, you are a direct descendant of the White Tiger clan, how could you do such a thing? Miss, if you spread the word like this, wouldn't it destroy the majesty of our entire White Tiger clan? Miss, you are so sorry to the ancestor. When Xiao Zhao got excited, he couldn't help but kneel on the ground and burst into tears. If the patriarch and the eldest lady find out, they will definitely not forgive you, miss. Xuanhuan was scolded and became speechless. She looked at Xiao Zhao blankly. Xiao Zhao has been with her for many years, and she has always known that Xiao Zhao is loyal and will never do anything detrimental to the White Tiger clan. Therefore, what Xiao Zhao said just now should be from the bottom of his heart and not a lie. It seems that Xiao Zhao is reminding himself not to forget the dignity of the White Tiger clan. Xuanhuan felt moved in her heart. It seemed that she had misunderstood Xiao Zhao. Unfortunately, Xiao Zhao didn't know what this matter meant to him. Thinking of this, Xuanhuan sighed softly. It was impossible for her to give up now. After all, she wanted to make progress so much, especially after seeing the hope of promotion. How could she give up so easily? What's more, she has already had it for the first time, and it doesn't matter even if she does it a second time or a third time. On the other hand, it was Xiao Zhao. She didn't want to have the experience to herself, but she really didn't want Xiao Zhao to fall into this deep pit with her. She shouldn't have to bear all this. Just as Xuanhuan was thinking this, she saw Xiao Zhao kneeling in front of Qin Mu and begging with tears in his eyes. Your Majesty, Miss doesn't know how to serve others, so let's let Xiao Zhao come. Xuanhuan. What the hell is this? She desperately wanted to protect Xiao Zhao, but the other party desperately wanted to take over her. It's a two-way journey, right? Xuanhuan glared at Xiao Zhao and yelled, what are you talking about? Get out quickly, leave this place to me. However, Xiao Zhao didn't seem to understand Xuanhuan's words at all, and still insisted. Miss, Xiao Zhao will not be embarrassed. Xiao Zhao promises to serve His Majesty well. Xuanhuan completely went berserk and shouted angrily, get out, go. Miss. Get out, Xuanhuan's face darkened, as if she would turn into a tigress and pounce on him in the next second. Yes, miss. Xiao Zhao glanced at Xuanhuan fearfully. After all, she was afraid. She stood up and prepared to retreat outside. Seeing this, Xuanhuan breathed a sigh of relief and finally pushed Xiao Zhao away. At this time, Qin Mu suddenly rubbed his temples, shook his head and said helplessly, you two, master and servant, are acting with me here, right? This is my place. Did I say let any of you leave? Hearing Qin Mu's words, Xuanhuan's face instantly turned pale. She was only focused on teaching Xiao Zhao a lesson just now and completely forgot that Qin Mu was still here. Now that we're all here, how can we just leave like this? After saying that, Qin Mu walked straight towards Xuanhuan, with a faint smile in his eyes. Xuanhuan subconsciously took 2 steps back. Qin Mu reached out and grabbed Xuanhuan's slender arm, pinched her chin with one hand, and said word by word, since you want to seduce me, then. He paused and continued, you have to fulfill your duties. Xuanhuan gritted her teeth and said, you are a fool, you are foolish and immoral, lascivious, utterly ridiculous, completely unconscionable, and the anger of both humans and gods. Qin Mu narrowed his eyes slightly, raised the corners of his mouth with a slight arc, looked at Xuanhuan with interest, and asked. Have you had enough scolding? No, Xuanhuan snorted coldly and continued to curse, you tyrant. You shameless and lecherous king. Xuanhuan raised her pink little fist and beat Qin Mu's generous chest, but her little strength was nothing to Qin Mu, it only made him itchy but not painful. Do you want to scold me again? Qin Mu held Xuanhuan's wrist and looked down at her. His dark and deep eyes fell on Xuanhuan's bright red and plump cherry mouth. Xuanhuan was stared at by his hot eyes, her breathing was stagnant and her heart was beating wildly. This bastard, could he want to kiss her? Xuanhuan's heart skipped a beat and she subconsciously turned her head to avoid it. You idiot! Shameless fool! What do you want to do? Xuanhuan looked at Qin Mu in fear but with a hint of expectation, her body instinctively shrank back, her watery and clear eyes full of confusion. What's scary is that she may have to experience a terrible encounter again later, and what's expected is that after tonight, her state of mind may be loosened again. Yes, that's right, she was all for a breakthrough in her realm, so she treated this bastard emperor so submissively. When she completes her breakthrough and gains freedom, she will definitely teach this bastard a lesson. Qin Mu raised his eyebrows slightly, and saw the obvious dodge in Xuanhuan's eyes, with a playful smile on his lips. He leaned close to Xuanhuan's ear and breathed ambiguously, Why, weren't you bold just now? Are you shy now? The warm breath sprayed on Xuanhuan's delicate cheeks, making her heart tremble and her whole body tremble. Damn it! Why is she so useless? She can't stand being teased by this foolish king even a few times. Xuanhuan suppressed the throb in her heart and pretended to be fearless, who said I'm afraid. If you have the ability, just kiss me. After saying that, Xuanhuan closed her eyes and put on a generous gesture. And at this time, Xiaozhao, who had stopped a long time ago, was frightened when he saw this scene. She quickly ran forward, grabbed Qin Mu's sleeve, and begged hastily, Your Majesty, please don't embarrass the young lady. Xiaozhao is willing to serve you on the young lady's behalf. Xuanhuan. She had never been so fed up with Xiaozhao's existence, it was such a hindrance. But soon, she no longer had time to hate Xiaozhao. Even in the end, she still needed to thank Xiaozhao. Chang'an City. Chang'an Street is brightly lit at night. Every house is decorated with lanterns and colorful decorations, and a festive atmosphere permeates the streets, showing joy and peace everywhere. All the residents of Chang'an City were celebrating Qin's victory. The people took out their most precious wines to entertain the guests. The streets were filled with all kinds of lanterns, which were so beautiful. But in a corner where no one is paying attention, a pair of sinister blood-red eyes are quietly staring at the bustling crowd on Chang'an Street. At the beginning, I gave the future empress her death. I became stronger because I was stupid. Author, Len Mian Buletin Leng. Chapter 387. He was covered in a black robe, and the brim of his hat covered half of his hideous, pale face. The only thing that was exposed was his unusually red lips, as well as his slender fingers and sharp nails. He stood quietly in the dark, motionless, like a ghost in the underworld, which was creepy. Dakin, Qin Mu. The man slowly opened his lips, and a hoarse and strange voice slowly sounded from his mouth. The voice was low and hoarse, like the sound of metal collision. He slowly raised his head, and his blood-red pupils looked at the sky, as if he came from the netherworld, with endless resentment and hatred. Then the man raised his right arm, rubbing his index finger and thumb against each other, as if counting something. 3,000 years have passed. It has been 3,000 years since I came back to Chang'an. 3,000 years have passed, and that old immortal thing is still living a comfortable life. The man's scarlet pupils flashed with bloodthirsty light, and his voice became more and more chilling. but I have been living in hell and can never escape. I hate it, I hate it, I hate that damn thing, I hate this land. So, I want to destroy it. I want to destroy everything. Including those who used to be high and mighty and treated me like grass. Qin Mu, you should thank me. Otherwise, how could you have the opportunity to sit in this position? The man sneered in a low voice, his voice was hoarse and cold, like a demon crawling out of hell, gloomy and terrifying, filled with strong hatred. But then, the man's tone suddenly changed, and his voice suddenly rose. But why do you show your unreasonable strength again and again? Why? Is there a bigger secret hidden in this? The man pursed his lips tightly, his eyes were bloodshot, he gritted his teeth, and his forehead was bulging with veins, looking very scary. He slowly touched the wound on his left arm, and his eyes gradually showed dark murderous intent. If he hadn't been lucky enough to escape quickly that day, he might have been discovered now. Thinking of this, the bloodthirsty red eyes suddenly showed a murderous color, which made people feel cold. Qin Mu, Qin Mu. A strange arc appeared at the corner of his mouth, and he whispered these two words, his eyes became more fierce. Have you also obtained the inheritance of another world like me? He stretched out his tongue to lick the dry corner of his mouth, his voice hoarse and harsh. Ha, I'm really looking forward to it, I hope your secret can satisfy me. I've been waiting for so many years, and it doesn't matter if I wait for a moment, he, right. After that, the man's figure disappeared from the spot, as if he evaporated out of thin air, and disappeared completely. At night, the moon hangs high in the dark dome, emitting a soft and hazy silver glow. The bustling streets are crowded with cars, brightly lit and noisy. The shops beside the street are lined up, and restaurants, tea houses, brothels, all kinds of entertainment facilities are crowded with people, which are extremely popular. There were all kinds of people walking on the streets, including ordinary people in simple clothes, monks in luxurious clothes, and noble princes and ministers. Chang'an City was particularly noisy tonight, with people surging, celebrating together, drinking and singing, and there was no trace of the bleakness of the past few days. We are so stupid. Your Majesty is so amazing. He is just like a god. Your Majesty is a wise ruler of all ages. Yes, yes, Your Majesty cares about the world, recruits talents, and thinks about us. We are so ashamed. Thinking back then, we slandered Your Majesty so much. It was really a heinous crime. Fortunately, Your Majesty was magnanimous and did not pursue us. Yes, Your Majesty is really a benevolent and holy ruler. We were so narrow-minded in the past. Yes, yes, I am so ashamed. We actually misunderstood Your Majesty, alas. I don't know how long this prosperity will last. A restaurant called Xuanhuan only heard people talking around, shaking their heads, looking like they were deeply taught and awakened. They were grateful to Qin Mu, and their words were full of admiration and respect. Among them, the people in Chang'an were the most excited, and they all praised the emperor's kindness and virtue. There were even many people who knelt on the ground, crying and praising Qin Mu's good deeds, praying that he could continue to bless them. Suddenly, boom! Accompanied by a huge explosion, a huge and dazzling firework streaked across the sky, magnificent and magnificent. In an instant, the sky and the earth changed color. The stars in the sky disappeared in an instant, and everything was silent. Only the gorgeous and dazzling firework in the sky bloomed above the night sky, embellishing the dark sky, which was particularly spectacular. Then, countless fireworks exploded together, colorful and dazzling. One after another, the fireworks bloomed in the night sky, reflecting the dark night sky like daylight. The whole world was in shock and joy, people shouted excitedly, applauded and cheered, tears filled their eyes, and they were moved to tears. This night is destined to be recorded in history. At this time, Every corner of the Qin dynasty was celebrating this moment. Countless people gathered in wine shops and tea houses, rejoicing. It is no exaggeration to say that the whole country celebrated together. Countless people knelt on the ground, kowtowed and worshipped in the direction of the palace, and were extremely pious. National Master Du Yulin stood on a high platform, overlooking the various forms of life, with a faint smile on his face, his eyes gradually moistened, and he gently closed his eyes. In his mind, the scene in Chang'an City that year emerged involuntarily. That was the scene when the previous Qin emperor returned from a great victory, the same people congratulated, the same fireworks, and the same people cheered with joy. In memory, he was also so happy back then, and the officials were so enthusiastic back then. The handsome face in memory is still very clear. That year, the world was peaceful and the people were prosperous. That year, the emperor swept across the 8 wildernesses, and the 4 seas surrendered. That year, the Qin royal family dominated the world, suppressed the sky, and all nations came to pay tribute. But what is different from the past is that this time, what His Majesty did was even greater and more shocking. At the beginning, I gave the future empress her death. I became stronger because I was stupid. Author, Len Mian Buletin Leng. Chapter 388. Because your Majesty not only saved the entire Chang'an city and the lives of hundreds of millions of people, but also expanded the great Qin dynasty several times. This is a new era, a brand new beginning. From today onwards, the great Qin dynasty will usher in a period of rapid rise. In the past, he had followed the previous emperor to fight in all directions, and personally participated in countless wars and massacres. He had long been accustomed to blood and death, honor and celebration. But at this moment, Du Yulin felt his nose sore and his eyes swollen, and his heart was surging. He still couldn't believe that the man was His Majesty. Over the years, he has fought all the way and laid a solid foundation for the great Qin dynasty, and has made immeasurable efforts. Finally, after all the hardships, your Majesty brought a new life to the great Qin dynasty, and everything he has paid was worth it. He believed that it would not take long for your Majesty to lead the great Qin dynasty to unify the 9 states, rebuild the prosperous era, and create an immortal prosperous era for generations. At that time, no one dared to invade the territory of the great Qin dynasty. Your Majesty. It took a long time for Du Yulin to recover from his agitated thoughts. He took a deep breath, suppressed his thoughts, and turned his gaze to the direction of the imperial palace in the center of Chang'an City. He murmured with a trembling voice, "Your Majesty, you finally did it? You did it?" Qin Mu was also busy at this time. He was very busy in the world of the demon refining pot. Because he not only had to deal with turtles, but also foxes, white tigers, phoenixes, and a little dragon. This made Qin Mu couldn't help but complain while he was busy. If this continued, his place would almost become a zoo. In the end, he even had to deal with the concubines in the harem. After all, Qin Mu's main point was to treat everyone equally. Of course, Qin Mu enjoyed it very much despite the complaints. The non-stop practice these days made his cultivation level soar like a rocket. The aura in his body was majestic and surging, like an ocean, thick and condensed. This feeling of increased strength was simply wonderful. Although he was still far away from the realm of the great emperor, he was getting closer and closer to a breakthrough. Qin Mu seemed to see a door leading to the peak of the great Dao open to him. Unconsciously, his understanding of the great Dao became more and more profound. The spiritual power in his body rolled and boiled, turning into a huge wave that swept all over his body. His body was transforming, and his flesh, bones, internal organs, and blood seemed to contain unimaginable terrifying power. It seemed that a punch could shatter the world and destroy everything, with unimaginable power. His spirit was sublimating, his lifespan was increasing, and his physique was getting stronger. Qin Mu felt as if he was in another world. His body was becoming more and more powerful, and the spiritual power in his body was becoming more and more majestic. The spiritual energy swallowed into his body every minute was several times more than before. Fortunately, there was no lack of spiritual energy in the demon refining pot, otherwise it would not be able to support Qin Mu's crazy absorption. An unprecedented power filled every inch of his skin. This power made him feel as if he could tear the sky apart. He had a hunch that with this punch, he could crush even a planet with one punch. And there was no burden at all. He could even feel that as his body became stronger, his potential was developed to the extreme, and his physique, spirit were all improving. And this improvement was by no means a simple improvement in realm. These are two completely different concepts. He could feel that his blood was reviving and his soul was sublimating. His consciousness was undergoing a transformation, and his soul was being refined. This change was very strange, giving him an indescribable feeling of refreshment. At this moment, Qin Mu felt that his soul was pulled out of his body and floated to the ethereal place. The soul traveled through the heavens and the worlds. The soul is free from the shackles of the body, no longer bound by the body, and completely free from the shackles. This is truly transcending the mundane, reaching a whole new level. Is this a real immortal? An inexplicable thought suddenly occurred in Qin Mu's mind. His soul seemed to have traveled through time and space and entered another world. Qin Mu's eyelids twitched a few times, and then he slowly opened his eyes. What came into view was the boundless darkness. Then a golden dragon of luck emerged, circling around Qin Mu, exuding infinite momentum. Qin Mu's eyes flickered slightly. Its appearance was very familiar to Qin Mu. This was the luck of the great Qin dynasty. And Qin Mu's eyes fell on the golden dragon of luck. Behind it, a golden sun was hanging, dazzling and dazzling. The sun was hanging high, shedding brilliant sunlight, driving away the darkness. Around the sun, one after another, ancient saints' images stood on it, like stars surrounding the moon, surrounding the sun. These saints may have fallen long ago, or only their souls are left, but they still have an incomparably terrifying deterrent power, which makes Qin Mu feel palpitations. They are the invincible saints who have ever been born in the history of the Qin dynasty. They are the existences that once dominated the world and looked down upon the 8 wildernesses, and they are unmatched. These saints have left their own heritage. The great sun is the sun of the sages, guarding the core of the destiny of the entire great Qin. Ancestors, you have worked hard. Qin Mu sighed inwardly. He understood that this was the gathering power of great Qin's destiny, and it was left behind by the ancestors to protect great Qin. This time, he obtained the fortunes of other sects' holy lands, which resulted in the Qin dynasty's national fortunes being far more powerful than any before. This kind of improvement was simply unimaginable. Ho! Suddenly, Qin Mu felt the sounds of beasts coming from his ears. He slowly opened his eyes, raised his eyebrows, and listened. Suddenly he saw, to his left, a snow-white tiger lying on the ground, looking up at him. The hair all over her body is white and flawless, shiny and smooth, without any variegation, and the lines on her forehead are even more revealing with a faint golden light, giving people a noble and mysterious feeling. At this moment, she was staring at Qin Mu with resentful eyes. Qin Mu suddenly laughed. "What? Why are you looking at me like that?" he said, extending his palm towards the white tiger. Baihu's eyes widened and he stared at Qin Mu, as if he wanted to smash his palm with his paw. "Don't make trouble," Qin Mu shouted softly, then grabbed the white tiger's paw and pulled it up. Baihu struggled, trying to run away from his arms. "Where do you want to run?" Qin Mu looked serious. The white tiger cried out in grievance. "Not good." Qin Mu touched its head. Baihu narrowed his eyes comfortably. Qin Mu asked with a smile, "I can change back." Baihu blinked his big moist eyes and cockily tilted his head to one side. "If you say you want to become a white tiger, you will become a white tiger. If you say you want to become a human, you will become a human? This lady has no face. Bai Hu snorted twice and turned his head, too lazy to pay attention to him. Qin Mu shook his head, smiled, and touched her head. He looked around with a bit of surprise in his eyes. I actually broke through. His cultivation level has once again broken through the first level. The immortal heavenly skill, which he transformed into a free method, is really mysterious. Qin Mu admired, feeling quite happy in his heart. But soon, something troubled him again. As if he saw Qin Mu waking up, the dragons, phoenixes, foxes, and turtles in the distance slowly appeared in front of him. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. At the beginning, I gave the future empress her death. I became stronger because I was stupid. Author, Len Mian Buletin Leng. Chapter 389. For several days, Qin Mu did not leave the demon refining pot. He stayed in the demon refining pot in seclusion, meditating on his own strength and methods. It sounds like he is very hard-working, but Qin Mu's way of cultivation is probably the most enviable and easiest way in the world. Dual cultivation can make you stronger. What could be easier than this? Qin Mu did nothing, just lying down and enjoying it, and he broke through. If other people knew about it, they would probably be envious and jealous. They fought hard, walked in the danger of life and death, and paid the persistence and hard work that ordinary people imagine, in order to make a breakthrough. And Qin Mu just needed to lie there and enjoy it. In fact, Qin Mu had wanted to end his cultivation a long time ago. After all, he would get tired of eating delicacies every day. But he couldn't get away for a while, because there were too many people who needed to share the rain and dew. And there were many shameless people who had already rewarded once, but they still came up and said they wanted to do it again. For example, Xuanhuan, the yellow spring spirit turtle, Sumaer, the nine-tailed fox, Zhihong'ai, the Kenyu empress, and even the Yuetian fairy who just joined this big family. After experiencing the rapid increase in their cultivation, they have completely tasted the sweetness, just like a kitten that only wants to be touched, and they will pounce on Qin Mu whenever they get the chance. No one can refuse the growth of strength, especially for these proud girls with lofty goals. Every bit of progress is extremely important, and it is the food for their future pursuit of higher levels. Even if Qin Mu announced to the public that men can also gain great power by practicing with him, there will definitely be many men who will make decisions that violate the ancestral precepts, sign up enthusiastically, and make no sacrifice. In this world where power is respected, no one can refuse this temptation. Especially when your realm cannot make any progress no matter how you practice, you suddenly experience a way to gain power very easily. This temptation is irresistible. It's like a poison, addictive, and dependent. So during this period of time, they are happy and diligent. Qin Mu naturally accepted all the beautiful and charming fairies who threw themselves at him. And Qin Mu never let them idle, especially those powerful women, who were even busier. In addition to accompanying Qin Mu, they were also responsible for helping those weak women improve their cultivation. This kind of cultivation does not refer to the simple improvement of strength, but more to the teaching of various martial arts and secrets, so that they can improve their combat effectiveness as soon as possible. Although these powerful women did not really teach them the cultivation methods, they also taught them various combat secrets and auxiliary means such as formations, which are undoubtedly beneficial to cultivation. And they never hesitated to guide those weak women. After all, they are all sisters, and they should always take care of each other, right? And when their cultivation reaches their status, even if they teach them a trick casually, it is enough for those low-level cultivators to benefit for a lifetime, not to mention that there are many exquisite secrets. For ordinary low-level cultivators, this is definitely a great opportunity. In this case, those girls with lower strength will naturally work hard to practice and try not to drag down the sisters. In short, they are all very dedicated to practice. And Qin did not hesitate to give away the spoils he seized from the saints and defeated sections. He often gave away countless elixirs and magic weapons with a wave of his hand. Most of these elixirs and magic weapons were left by the saints he killed, and they were not very useful to him. But for those ordinary cultivators, it represents a great opportunity. These things piled up into several small mountains, and these magic weapons and elixirs were basically at the level of the sect masters and supreme elders, and their value was difficult to measure. Unfortunately, Qin didn't care about them at all and threw them out casually. Because there were too many, fortunately the internal space of the demon refining pot was large enough, otherwise it really couldn't hold so many things. But even so, these magic weapons and elixirs almost filled the entire demon refining pot. You know, the number of these things is the treasures of hundreds of saints for thousands or even tens of thousands of years. If this kind of thing is placed in any force, it will shake the entire human race. I don't know how many cultivators have fought to the death for it. However, in this world, it is a very common thing. After all, cultivation itself is to defy fate, and in such a cruel environment, only by being strong can there be hope of survival and protection. Otherwise, even saints may not be able to live for long, and even death is not uncommon. Just like those saints who fell in Qin hands, the storage bags of these people are now placed in the corner of the demon refining pot, piled high. Not only elixirs and magic weapons, Qin also took out some of the treasures he collected and gave them to them, so that the strength of those women with low strength soared rapidly. In just a few days, the originally low-strength female disciples broke through the bottleneck and promoted to a higher realm. Of course, these women's talents were originally good, but they lacked the foundation of cultivation. Those saintly women taught them a few words casually, which was enough to make them suddenly enlightened and appreciate the true meaning of cultivation. Therefore, during this period of time, the strength of all the women in the demon refining pot has increased rapidly. Not only is her strength getting stronger, her appearance is also changing more and more stunning, and even her temperament has changed dramatically, becoming more ethereal and extraordinary, as if she has been reborn, which is fascinating. Qin is quite satisfied with this. After all, the road of cultivation is long and difficult, and Qin also hopes that the women around him will become stronger and stronger, not just a group of powerless vases. Although it seems that they are useless now, as time goes by, they will eventually grow to the point where they can help him. Qin opened his eyes, exhaled, sat up slowly, and stretched his muscles. Feeling that his whole body is full of infinite power, Qin smiled and was in a good mood. These days, he has almost put all his energy on cultivation. Every night, a group of beautiful women surround him, and they act coquettishly and flatteringly. Some are weak and cute, some are charming and moving, some are gentle and weak, and some are cold and arrogant. It can be said that there are thousands of postures. Such a day is really not changeable even if an immortal comes. Moreover, the person who gained the most from this retreat was Qin. Not only did he make a breakthrough in strength, but the transformation of his body also made his body more tenacious and strong. Even if he fought against a strong man of the 9th level of the Saint realm with his physical strength alone, he could easily crush him. And he also gained one thing from this retreat, the White Tiger bloodline. Warm Ti. At the beginning, I gave the future empress her death. I became stronger because I was stupid. Author, Len Mian Buletin Leng. Chapter 390. Qin and Xuanhuan's dual cultivation at the beginning made Qin strength surge again, and he also gained this part of the White Tiger bloodline. Although it was only a small part, the benefits it brought to Qin were simply unimaginable. First of all, this part of the White Tiger bloodline can make Qin body stronger, and at the same time increase the special power of the white tiger, making his attack more threatening. And this bloodline power formed a special force field in Qin Mu's body, making Qin Mu's attack power several times stronger than before every time he performed martial arts. And this is just the ability attached to the white tiger bloodline. Qin Mu can predict that if this part of the bloodline is fully stimulated, he may be able to burst out with combat power far beyond his own realm. This is the power of the white tiger bloodline. This ability is not only attack, but also extremely strong defense. Combined with Qin Mu's strong body, it can be comparable to the existence of the quasi-emperor level. In addition, the white tiger bloodline has other abilities, which Qin Mu needs to slowly explore. Not only that, Qin Mu also found that the white tiger bloodline resonated with the true phoenix bloodline, true dragon bloodline, and yellow spring spirit turtle bloodline in his body, and they complemented each other. Although the yellow spring spirit turtle is not a black tortoise, it belongs to the same race. If the four are integrated, he may be able to condense a more powerful bloodline power, or evolve an unprecedented physique, and then his combat power will definitely be further improved. However, it is not easy to achieve this, and he needs to study it in detail in the future. In any case, Qin Mu's retreat this time has a significant effect. Although he failed to break through the shackles and enter the realm of the great emperor, it also made his strength soar again, and he is one step closer to the legendary great emperor realm. Or it can be said that he has touched the window paper, and he only needs to step into the next realm. In addition, Qin Mu also obtained a treasure Xuanhuan altar. This altar is the space treasure that the White Tiger clan uses to suppress the destiny of heaven and earth and has the ability to travel through space. According to Xuanhuan, this treasure was left by the ancestors of the White Tiger clan. It can cross the heavens and the worlds and traverse the galaxy. It is an extremely precious treasure. However, due to the high grade of the altar, Qin Mu can only play a part of its functions with his current strength. Qin Mu estimated that with his current strength, he can only travel a short distance at most. It is still too difficult to cross the galaxy and cross the barriers of the heavens and the worlds. However, even so, this space altar is still a priceless treasure. This altar has many functions, one of which is space jumping. As long as the altar is activated within a certain range, space travel can be carried out. On the other hand, this altar can also be used as a space coordinate. As long as you have this altar in hand, you have a safe and secure route. However, there are also certain disadvantages, that is, the cost of using the altar is very expensive, even if it is only a short distance crossing, the consumption is huge. Moreover, during the crossing process, the coordinates and routes cannot be easily changed, otherwise it is possible to fall into the chaotic void, which is very dangerous. It is for this reason that Xuanhuan plunged into the world of the demon refining pot. Because when Qin Mu came back, he just discovered the abnormal space fluctuations outside Chang'an City, and used the demon refining pot to accommodate the necessary path. This successfully made Xuanhuan's little white tiger fall into the trap. At this time, Qin Mu raised his eyebrows slightly. Because he noticed someone approaching. Qin Mu stood up and glanced at a certain void. His eyes were far away, and there were faint stars floating. The golden dragon of the Qin dynasty's luck always lingered beside Qin Mu, and the blazing golden light made Qin Mu's breath deeper and more terrifying. "Don't hide, I can smell the white tiger on you from a long distance." Qin Mu spoke lightly, with a calm tone and a smile on his face. "It's boring. You always find me." As the voice fell, a fragrant breeze blew over, and a woman walked out of the void and landed in the courtyard. This is a young woman, who looks no older than 28 years old, with skin as white as snow, hair draped over her shoulders, and an innate noble demeanor between her eyebrows, which is heartbreaking. And her figure is extremely slender, graceful, and well proportioned. The thin parts are exposed, and the plump parts are exquisitely curved. The whole body is like a ball of water mist, revealing infinite temptation, enough to drive any man crazy. Who else is it if not Xuanhuan? Qin Mu looked at Xuanhuan, the arc of his mouth widened, and a touch of surprise flashed in his eyes. Today's Xuanhuan is particularly beautiful. The snow-white hair fluttered in the wind, the black and bright eyes flashed with bright stars, and the cherry red and tender lips glowed with an attractive luster. She was dressed in white, with a waist that was as slender as a hand, and her round and perky buttocks outlined a charming curve. Especially her chest, which was about to burst out, as if it could break free from the restraints at any time. This was the first time Qin Mu had seen Xuanhuan dressed so charmingly since he met her. She was not as cold as before. "What, are you stupid?" Seeing Qin Mu's appearance, Xuanhuan smiled brightly, her eyes were charming, and her arrogant expression was a little proud. She knew that with her charm, this tyrant would definitely be fascinated and infatuated. "Yeah, I was stunned," Qin Mu nodded and praised. "This little white tiger really has the capital to be the most beautiful in the country." When Xuanhuan heard Qin Mu's words, her face was flushed, her cheeks were rosy, and her heart was pounding, almost jumping out of her throat. Then, "Am I pretty?" Xuanhuan's voice was soft and tender, like a warm current flowing through her body, making her feel very comfortable. Pretty. Qin Mu nodded and said honestly. This little goblin actually learned to tease herself. She must have learned it from Sumaer, the foxy girl. "What?" Xuanhuan was stunned, and then her pretty face flushed, and her heart was sweet. This tyrant actually praised her? This seems to be the first time. Then her face suddenly became redder, and her eyes were curved, like a crescent moon. Then, who is prettier, me or Sister Mayer? Xuanhuan's beautiful eyes flashed with charming and seductive brilliance, and continued to ask. Qin Mu pondered for a moment, then said, "In terms of bloodline, you are better. Although Sumaer also has the bloodline of the nine-tailed sky fox, it is still slightly inferior to the bloodline of the white tiger." Xuanhuan rolled her eyes slightly, and then glanced at Qin Mu angrily. "Who asked you this?"